Latest headlines: Israeli minister says Iran retaliation will be deadly. Precise and surprising couple killed by Hezbollah rocket fire in northern Israel. Biden and Netanyahu speak as Israel mulls Iran response. Indian tycoon Ratan Tata dies aged 86. Hurricane Milton spawns tornadoes as it approaches Florida. There is no wasted times when you stay with us. Couple killed by Hezbollah rocket fire in northern Israel. 2 civilians have been killed and several others wounded after the Lebanese armed group Hezbollah fired at least 150 rockets into northern Israel. Paramedics said a man and a woman in their 40s were fatally wounded by shrapnel in the border town of Kiryat Shmona. They were a couple who had been out walking their dog along a wooded street. Hezbollah said it had targeted Israeli forces in Kiryat Shmona, which most residents have evacuated after a year of cross-border fighting. These were the first Israeli civilians killed by Hezbollah since the conflict escalated 2 weeks ago, when Israel launched an intense air campaign targeting the Iran-backed group before invading southern Lebanon. The rocket or fragments that hit Kiryat Shmona on Wednesday also sparked several fires. We could smell the fires burning before we saw them. In one street, neighbors watched as 3 teams of firefighters tackled plumes of smoke from a house where a rocket had landed. Katie Kroshteen watched in disbelief from the other side of the road. The house next door belonged to her father. "I saw red," she replied, when I asked for her reaction. "It's gone beyond fear now, it's just anger." Rockets have been a daily reality for a year now in Kiryat Shmona, and many people there said they wanted their military to do whatever it takes to make them stop. As we arrived and began filming, there were several more rocket alerts and interceptions. This close to the border, residents have just seconds to reach a shelter. We watched as one large barrage of more than 20 rockets, followed by what looked like a missile, were all intercepted in the sky overhead, part of what the Israeli military said were 90 projectiles launched from Lebanon in a single 8-minute window. Earlier on Wednesday, we were in another town to the west, where the border cuts straight down the hill overlooking it. Burned patches of forest mark where artillery and rockets have landed. In the deserted streets below, the sound of gunfire from across the hill echoed around empty houses. Shelley Barkan, one of very few who have stayed there, said there were sometimes 8 or 9 rocket alerts each day now. "I've got pieces of rockets in my garden," she said. "Their aim is to murder us, to kill us, to send Israel to the sea, and our aim is to defend ourselves." She showed us the catering hall where she helps prepare food for the local soldiers. While we were there, we heard a barrage of rockets fired from Lebanon over our heads towards Israeli towns further south. Minutes later, rockets landed in the coastal city of Haifa, wounding another 5 people, including a teenage boy. Many Israelis said they wanted their military to do whatever it took to make the rocket attacks stop. Israel has gone on the offensive after almost a year of cross-border fighting sparked by the war in Gaza, saying it wants to ensure the safe return of tens of thousands of residents of Israeli border areas displaced by Hezbollah rocket, missile and drone attacks. The hostilities have escalated steadily since Hezbollah began firing rockets into northern Israel in support of Palestinians on the 8th of October, 2023, the day after its ally Hamas's deadly attack on southern Israel. The military says the aim of its ground invasion, which began 9 days ago, is to destroy Hezbollah infrastructure along the border that it says poses an imminent threat to Israeli communities. There were reports of intense battles between Israeli soldiers and Hezbollah fighters in several southern Lebanese areas on Wednesday. Hezbollah said its fighters had pushed back Israeli troops advancing towards the western village of Labounet, attacked others inside the eastern village of Maroun al-Raz, and shelled troops near Maiz al-Jabal, which is near Kiryat Shmona. The Israeli military, meanwhile, said its troops and aircraft had destroyed more than 100 Hezbollah targets across southern Lebanon over the past day. The Lebanese Health Ministry said at least 4 people had been killed and 10 injured in an Israeli airstrike on the village of Wardanayut, to the northeast of the coastal city of Sidon. The state-run national news agency reported that the strike hit a hotel housing displaced families. Israeli minister says Iran retaliation will be deadly. Precise and surprising. Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant says Israel's response to attacks by Iran will be deadly. Precise and surprising. Speaking during a visit to an IDF intelligence unit, he calls the Iranian missile attack last week, which saw almost 200 ballistic missiles fired towards Israel, aggressive but imprecise. It comes as U.S. President Joe Biden and Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu have spoken for the first time in weeks. The White House says Vice President Kamala Harris joined the phone call. Fighting is continuing between Hezbollah and Israel, with 4 people killed in an Israeli airstrike on a Lebanese village, and 2 killed by Hezbollah rockets in northern Israel, local authorities say on the ground. Clashes are also reported along the border after Israel expanded its invasion into western areas. After earlier focusing on the East, Biden and Netanyahu speak as Israel mulls Iran response. U.S. President Joe Biden has held a much-anticipated call with Israel's Prime Minister, believed to be their first dialogue in weeks. Benjamin Netanyahu and President Biden are thought to have discussed Israel's response to Iran's missile attack last week amid escalating tensions in the Middle East. The White House said U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris also joined the call on Wednesday, although details of what was discussed are yet to be released. Defense Minister Yoav Gallant has said Israel's retaliatory attack against Iran will be deadly, precise and above all surprising. They will not understand what happened and how it happened, they will see the results, Gallant said. Elsewhere in the Middle East region, fighting has continued between Hezbollah and Israel, with 4 people killed in an Israeli airstrike on a Lebanese village near the southern city of Sidon. In the small Israeli town of Kiryat Shmona, a couple out walking their dog were killed by Hezbollah rockets fired from Lebanon. They are the first Israeli civilians to die since the cross-border conflict dramatically escalated 12 days ago. Rockets have also struck the Israeli port city of Haifa, injuring at least 5 people. Israel said it has carried out more than 1,100 airstrikes since its ground invasion began in southern Lebanon on the 30th of September. In an update shared on Wednesday evening, the Israeli Air Force said it had used fighter jets, helicopters and remotely manned aircraft to attack Hezbollah's sites, and has also attacked 300 targets in northern Gaza as part of the fighting in Jabalia. Previously, Netanyahu has vowed Iran will pay the price for the Iranian barrage, which Tehran said was in response to Israel's invasion of Lebanon and high-profile assassinations of Hezbollah leaders, including the late Hassan Nasrallah. The U.S. has defended Israel's right to retaliate, but has also appeared to be trying to limit its response to Iran. Lebanon's government says as many as 1.2 million people have fled their homes over the past year. Almost 180,000 people are in approved centers for the displaced. In addition, more than 400,000 people have fled into war-torn Syria, including more than 200,000 Syrian refugees, a situation that the head of the UN's refugee agency described as one of tragic absurdity. Hezbollah, a Shia Islamist political, military and social organization that wields considerable power in Lebanon, has remained defiant despite suffering a series of devastating blows in recent weeks, including the killing of its leader and most of its top military commanders. Reuters on Monday, the group insisted it was confident in the ability of our resistance to oppose the Israeli aggression. Israel's government, which designates Hezbollah as a terrorist organization, has pledged to make it safe for tens of thousands of displaced residents to return to their homes near the Lebanese border after a year of cross-border fighting sparked by the war in Gaza. Hostilities have escalated steadily since Hezbollah began firing rockets into northern Israel on the 8th of October, 2023, the day after its ally Hamas's deadly attack on southern Israel. Indian tycoon Ratan Tata dies aged 86. Indian tycoon Ratan Tata has died aged 86, says the Tata Group, the conglomerate he led for more than 2 decades. Tata was one of India's most internationally recognized business leaders. The Tata Group is one of India's largest companies, with annual revenues in excess of $100 billion, £76.5 billion. In a statement announcing Tata's death, the current chairman of Tata Sons described him as a truly uncommon leader. Natarajan Chandrasekaran added, "On behalf of the entire Tata family, I extend our deepest condolences to his loved ones. His legacy will continue to inspire us as we strive to uphold the principles he so passionately championed." During his tenure as chairman of the Tata Group, the conglomerate made several high-profile acquisitions, including the takeover of Anglo-Dutch steelmaker Corus, UK-based car brands Jaguar and Land Rover, and Tetley, the world's second-largest tea company. A profile published in The Economist magazine in 2011 called Tata a titan, crediting him with transforming the family group into a global powerhouse. He owns less than 1% of the group that bears his family name. But he is a titan nonetheless, the most powerful businessman in India and one of the most influential in the world, the magazine said. In 2012, he retired as chairman of the group and was appointed chairman emeritus of Tata Sons, the group's holding company. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi hailed Tata as a visionary business leader, a compassionate soul and an extraordinary human being. Paying tribute on X, formerly known as Twitter, Modi recounted countless interactions with Tata and said he was extremely pained by his death. Tata was born in a traditional Parsi family in 1937. He studied architecture and structural engineering at Cornell University in the U.S. In 1962, he joined Tata Industries, the promoter company of the group, as an assistant and spent 6 months training at a company plant in Jamshedpur. From here, he went on to work at the Tata Iron and Steel Company, now Tata Steel, Tata Consultancy Services, TCS, and National Radio and Electronics, NELCO. In 1991, J.R.D. Tata, who had led the group for over half a century, appointed Ratan Tata as his successor. He, J.R.D. Tata, was my greatest mentor. He was like a father and a brother to me, and not enough has been said about that, Tata later told an interviewer. In 2008, the Indian government awarded him the Padma Vibhushan, the country's second-highest civilian honor. Peter Casey, author of The Story of Tata, described Tata as a modest, reserved and even shy man who had a stately calm about him and a fierce discipline. He was drawn into a rare unsavory controversy in 2016, when his successor as Tata Sons chairman, Cyrus Mistry, was ousted from the role, sparking a bitter management feud. Mistry died in a car crash in 2022. The business tycoon also had a lighter side to him. His love for fast cars and planes was well known. The Tata Group website describes these as some of his enduring passions. Tata was also a scuba diving enthusiast, a hobby that fizzled with age as his ears could take the pressure no more. He was also a dog lover and fondly remembered the many pets who gave him company over the decades. "My love for dogs as pets is ever strong and will continue for as long as I live," the industrialist said in a 2021 interview. "There is an indescribable sadness every time one of my pets passes away, and I resolve I cannot go through another parting of that nature." And yet, 2-3 years down the road, my home becomes too empty and too quiet for me to live without them. So there is another dog that gets my affection and attention, just like the last one, he said. He was also often praised for his simplicity. In 2022, a video of him traveling in a nano car, one of the world's cheapest cars, now mostly remembered as one of Tata's failed dreams, went viral on social media. Hurricane Milton spawns tornadoes as it approaches Florida. Hurricane Milton, a Category 4 storm packing 145 miles per hour, 233 kilometers per hour, winds, is going to be deadly and catastrophic, officials are warning. As millions flee Florida for safety, Milton is forecast to be at Category 3 strength when it makes landfall by midnight over southern Sarasota. U.S. President Joe Biden slams a reckless promotion of outright lies by Trump and others about the federal government's response. It comes less than 2 weeks after Hurricane Helene hit the Gulf Coast as a Category 4 storm, killing at least 225 people across Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, Tennessee, Virginia and North Carolina.